San Diego County Office of Education for putting this opportunity together for us to just learn from each other and present a few things that we've been doing. And it's so nice to have everyone here. And thanks for putting things in the chat, letting us know where you're from. I'm going to be honest. First, I'm from Helix Charter High School in La Mesa. We're about 2,400 students. And CTE was kind of a new phenomena to us about 6 years ago we started. So I was tasked with working on the CTE program here, trying to build it along with all the other hats that we all wear in order to see some things. And learned a whole lot from it, and really want to talk a little bit today about how to create real achievable goals. That this came about as a result of, oftentimes we've had CTE in our schools for decades, called different things, all kinds of different names we've used, and we haven't, and the industry people were letting us know we really haven't actually addressed all of their needs. We're not filling necessarily all the needs in some of our industries in San Diego. So we created some achievable goals, and I'm going to go through what we actually did here this last spring so you can see the most current iteration of that. Also going to talk, I'm not sure if Donica will be joining us, but I'll talk about it as well if she's not here, about some of the social media marketing tips we've used, real simple and easy, that have been effective. And so first, we did a summer, our agenda is basically to talk about our Summer Institute evaluation process. Just to let you know, we did this evaluation process in May because of COVID, and because we felt we could work it in, and our teachers and our teams were really open to that idea, and then talk about social media. Sorry, wrong button. I'm used to hitting the space bar. I'm muting myself. Social media marketing tips to help promote. So this is extremely key. If one is looking for transformative change in a CTE program, we really need to know, what are we doing? What are the standards? What should we be working towards? And then once we put all of that information in a safe environment out there, it's easier for us to really have a dialogue. Our resources, our money at our school follow the need. We want to get as much money to teachers as possible. And in order to do that, we really need to know what is it that we are doing towards the CTE metrics and things relative to this. All of these documents I've made available for you to view, to look at. They're all pretty much online types of documents that we'll be looking at today. The process for our evaluation was basically to take 4 days, have actually teams meet as a group. The entire pathway needed to be present. In order to have transformative change within the pathway, the pathway has to be a team, and they have to be working together. It's crucial. You will not see high functioning CTE pathways without all pathway teachers working together, supported by administration, district officials, and industry partners. It starts with that core group. And then it's really important that the pathway be the leaders of this collaboration, as opposed to me as the administrator telling them what all they have to do. I think it's all about I trust them as professionals, and my job is to guide, facilitate, support, help our pathway people. So I'm going to jump right in and just show you exactly what we did day by day. Day one, we analyzed CTE pathway goals. We looked at every CTE pathway. Every team was going to analyze those, and then they were going to evaluate how well their pathways met those goals. Day two, we were going to look at anchor standards to current courses. So it was important for our pathway teachers to say, okay, we've done the pathway goals. Those are kind of big picture ideas. How important are they? All of those. And then what are those anchor standards? And then how well do we actually do those things? Every pathway is going to have some things they do well, some they don't do well. Days 3 and 4 of our group was really spent on our teams working together to continue with the strengths that they're doing. And then also address 1 or 2 priority areas that we can attack. Our philosophy at Helix has been, we're not going to get all of those priority areas at the highest level overnight. But if we do systemically make a plan and attack some of them, over time, we are going to build our program, keep our strengths, and continue to work on the areas that we need to do. So our first day analyze the pathway standards. This is crucial that teachers do this individually. I have an opinion as to what is the most important goal in the CTE, and so does my colleague. I think it's important that my voice be heard. What is my philosophy? It impacts how I teach, how I run programs, the things I do. And I have to be safe to do that openly. It's key if we're creating an environment, we want to make sure it's a safe environment where everyone can work together. And we're going to rank those pathways. Now, I might say all of those pathways, we have to do all 11 of those all of those pathway goals within our CTE program. But I also think it's okay to say, what's my philosophy? This one is more important than another. And what that looks like, as I show this document, this pathway goal looks just like this. I know, let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. My pathway goal has all the 11 pathway goals listed here. And as a teacher, I'm going to go through and rank them as to which one I feel is most important. Do I think curriculum, most teachers are going to put number 2, curriculum instruction is most important, is way more important than who their administrator is or what the administration is doing for many teachers. And it's important that every teacher rank these independently. And over to the right, they have their ideal. In an ideal world, this is what I think is most important. Then once they are completed with that, I allow the teams to meet together and discuss what they thought was most important and what they thought individually was least important. And then the team works together to determine, as a CTE team, pathway team, these are our greatest priorities, the most important goals, and then to our lowest priorities. It gives every member of the team a voice in their goals of what is the ideal. Ideally, in a real world, this would be the most important goal that we would work towards, etc. The second thing that team does, and you'll notice this looks different, but there's a different word. Instead of ideal, now that team has met, I actually give them the exact same rubric standard again. The only difference is I say, in reality, which of these things is the pathway actually completing in reality? So ideally, this would be the best thing. Now I'm asking you individually to say, in reality, how well is your pathway doing these items from 1 to 11? See, I can always say that, hey, I want to lose a few pounds. That's a goal I have. But in reality, I might not be doing some of those, right? In my lifestyle priority, it might not be really high up on my list. So I think it's really important. And what's really crucial about this, we did this as a couple of years ago, we did this all as a group the first time. What I have learned is that teachers have to do this independently first, because we have some newer teachers on our pathways that sometimes get overshadowed by the veteran teachers who have been doing this for a while, and they just have more gusto or energy. And I think it's important for everyone's voice to be said. So these same exact standards are put out, and I ask them, what is your rank reality? They go through it, they rank them from greatest priority to lowest priority. I then put them back in a breakout room and I said, where are the commonalities? Where are the differences? And the teams collaborated to make a reality from 1 to 11 is in our current school at Helix, in this pathway, this is what we do the best in reality, and this is what we're doing not so much. So I know what ideal world is, I know what a goal is. And then of course, as the administrator and me, and or the past CTE teacher and all, I have them create this rank analysis document, because the idea is I'm going to take this data from my first survey and the second survey and put them side by side. When I put the survey side by side, what happens is I might have had, I'm just going to put in, I'm going to just put in, ideally, these are the most I'm just going to put in random numbers, whatever that might be. And in reality, uh, this these numbers aren't necessarily what our team said, but teachers, just to show you some examples, teachers might have said leadership ideally should be a number 5. It was our number 5 most important thing. And they might be saying, in reality, Trevino doesn't know what the heck she's doing, and it is bad, right? And they might have said that our Helix administration is horrible, right? And in reality, even though we think it should be higher. Or they might have said the number 1 thing is our goal ideally is that our curriculum instruction would be the best, but now that I've ranked them all, and in reality, oh, it's not as good as our CTSO might be. And so when teachers start to put their ideal and their reality, what we start seeing are discrepancies or alignment. And where there's alignment, we say, wow, that we're all on the same page here when we look at those groups in alignment. And we try to focus at Helix on not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We identify our strengths, and those strengths, we put fiscal resources towards them, and we try to continue to have strengths be strengths. And then we identify 2 priority areas that we as a team might want to work on, where we see a huge discrepancy. For example, ideally, I want to change these numbers because I disagree with ideally career exploration is a 2, and we as a school have it as a 10. Then we as a team are going to come up with some goals, some strengths, some priority areas from which we can address and then create action plans. So in this right here, we input the consensus from your ideal, from your rank reality, and then we identify the program goals. I know on these slides I've listed out a step-by-step guide, mostly because I'm hopeful if someone wanted to utilize this, they could use the PowerPoint to see how we went about that. And then identify 2 pathway goals. That ideally should be a high priority, ideally, but sometimes with the reality, it's not. And as a team, I think we should only bite off what we can chew. So we might both say that this is something we really have to work on. We might not have the skills or the experience in order to take that challenge, especially in COVID, right? We have one of our pathways that really wants to improve their CTSOs, and it's really going to be a challenge. And I've said, we need to rework this plan because we're in a distance learning environment, and it's going to be challenging to meet that goal. Let's find some other methods to do that.
Paula Ann, there's a question. I'm not sure if you're
You bet
to take questions. Okay. This one, and I think as you've gone through this slide, it might have been answered, but the question was, how was data used for teachers to determine what goals to prioritize?
Sure. So when we did this activity, we actually didn't bring in actual data from their pathways. We did it from a perspective of, ideally speaking, how would you want to go about using this information? We didn't necessarily bring in data of how many completers you have, you CTSO, because we believe our pathway teachers know that. We're dealing with a 1 school component. We have 5 pathways. What we do as a team is we consistently provide data to our teams as part of that. And perhaps, as you see right here, part of our action plan that I'm going to show you here may include some of that data. What you'll see is that if teachers have put a high priority goal that they want to work on in their plan as that they want to develop CTSOs, and that's a priority, and something else is a priority, and then all they're doing necessarily is saying, hey, I just want a bunch of money to go to conferences, or I want money to go to these, we're going to ask of where's the alignment here. We're going to make sure that the things that your team has, and I as an administrator, I'm going to get out of your way. I'm going to make sure that the things you've identified as goals that you want to work on, continue to do, and or your strengths and or your priorities are supported with fiscal resources. But some of those other things might not be supported for your team based on where those goals are for that year. But We then have they rank another, once I have completed, let me go back here. How do I go back? Once I've completed the pathway goals, that is just looking at pathway goals. What you're going to notice is we did this process 4 different times. One time on pathway goals, and we went through this whole thing about pathway goals, and another time, the second time we went through it, we were looking at the a pathway evaluation, which is the actual pathway standards, right? So pathway standards aren't the same as the CTE pathway goals. Now, our teachers at Helix have said, Trevino, too many surveys, we're doing this, but we have now narrowed it down to the ones that we think are most important. But in the beginning, I put all the different types of CT things out there in order to give as much information to teachers for them to create their plan. So we did the same process. We took a little break. We came back. We did the same process where teachers evaluated independently at pathway evaluations, which are really, as you notice right here, they are the pathway standards. Some of them are 1A, 1B. These are the kinds of things we see in a lot of our rubrics, et cetera. And then they, again, met with other teachers and they said, this is what I ideally believe. We then did the exact same thing again for the reality of the CTE. How well is our CTE program doing that in reality? We did this evaluation rank analysis, the same exact thing where we compared them side by side. The rank analysis would show these are our strengths, these are our priority areas. Because I believe that as we go through some of these things with teachers, you're going to start seeing the same patterns emerge. You're going to see that these are our goals for our pathway. These are the skills we're using for our pathways. These are our anchor standards for our actual individual pathways. And you're gathering information about what we all feel as a team in order to move us forward. On the second day, number one, teachers like the idea of working together through these. On the second day, we actually looked at specific CTE anchor standards. So you will recognize these anchor standards are academics, communication language standards, career planning management, technology writing. Teachers dislike doing this one because this is a lot of the skills-based things or things that are embedded into all of our pathways. However, I feel it's important to bring it up because I think there are teachers that do incredible work at some of these things. They're working on speeches in their CTSOs, they're working on communications, they're doing all of these, but they might not necessarily be doing technical writing. I hate writing. I do this in my class. We're work-based. We just get in, we're doing labs, projects. I don't have them write about it. And then we actually have had some discussions about, do people write in that industry? Do they read? Do we have technical things we have to do? So it's led to some really good dialogues. We go ideally as teachers. Again, we use the same process. Ideally, how do you feel about it? Meet with your team, discuss it. Then the next one we do and come up with, a priority. Then we do the reality. How well do we do this? Then discuss it as a group. What are the commonalities, the differences? And again, as all of you would know, we then put a rank analysis document about where we are with our strengths and where we are with our areas, our priority areas. I don't call them weaknesses, we call them priority areas. I know I'm going kind of quick. We also look at specific standards. So for me, this was, this is some work on my end that for each pathway, I gave them specific standards. So for example, the business entrepreneurship specific standards that I had them look at, you kind of have to scroll down, and I would give them that these are the anchor standards are the same for everyone. But if I scroll down, in the sector description of business and finance for our pathway, they can look at the academics, the communications, career planning, and they can actually make some determinations about how well they're doing that specifically for their pathway. Um, this is an improvement from previous years because our teachers were like, hey, you can't really compare the business pathway with engineering. We do different stuff. We have different skills. We have different types of reading we do. We have different types of math calculations we do, all of these kinds of things. So we went through and actually put together what are those ideal priority standards for your pathway? How well do our students actually learn them? And think from an industry perspective, how well do they actually learn those standards? And then put those strengths and priority areas together. What you can see, what we're doing in this prep work is teachers are gathering information on CTE goals, pathway standard goals, on skills goals, all within the CTE. And they're creating these priority area, these rank analysis, ideally reality. You can see gaps and discrepancies. They're writing priority areas, and they're writing strengths and priority areas. Because if teachers have all of this data and information, it's going to be much more effective for them to create an action plan for what they want to do moving forward. Too often, we used to do an action plan of, oh, what do you guys want to improve on this year? Oh, I want to do this. And there was not enough dialogue about what we already have done or where we're going. If we truly want to be transformative and actually take our CTE program from being average that no one knows about, your individual pathway, to how is that pathway going to be an outstanding pathway in our community? How is that going to happen? It's going to happen with small steps that are systemic and systematic in trying to make small incremental changes that are based in some kind of a real analysis of what our program's doing. And for me as an administrator, give them money to support those things and then hold them accountable to turning those things in, right? Which our teachers are totally okay with doing. And then we spend a couple of days doing that, and then we get to this 1-year plan. And the 1-year plan is, I have all of this information. I've created priority areas, strengths and priority areas in multiple different documents. And you cannot make all of those priorities for the year. You'll never be able to do it effectively. Do it well or do it not so well. And I'm asking teachers to commit to a 1-year plan of which strengths do they really want to make sure they support and which priority areas do we actually want to work on. So this is a sample template that they could create, and they can list all the things they want to do, and at the end I'd make them identify which of these we're going to do. So some teachers will have written 5 or 6 plans, depending on how many people are in the pathway, but they'll write, what are the specific strength or priority area? How is it measurable? Just making SMART goals, right? What's the time? What will we need? Who are the assigned staff? What resources are needed? And what's the status? Super helpful as an administrator to have this. Super helpful for our team to say, how do we support teachers in accomplishing this? And the fact that it wasn't created by me and it's created by them and it's based on their individual surveys is huge. We then, we're very transparent. So everything is in a main document. So I've actually asked teachers to give, to allow everyone to see their documents. So I create this little template and I just say, dump it in here. I really care about the one I really care about is this last one. And based on the work that I've done with these teachers, I know that this work up above is aligned, right? So I can check to make sure that when our teachers, I'll just pull out our business pathway, I'm putting them out here, the business pathway in their career goals, identified their highest area as their curriculum and instruction. I concur 100%. And in reality, I concur 100%. They are incredible. Lots of people love to see what they're doing. We have our own business on campus that students get paid and worked at. I mean, it's not a virtual business, it's a real business, all of those things. And when they look at their rank ideal, you can actually see where there's alignment and where there might be some discrepancies. They have a lot of alignment in their strengths. They're number 11, the area they think they need to work on the most, which I don't agree with this because of how they were analyzing it, because we have a great student business within the class, but it's okay. I'm fine with it. They didn't put that as their number one priority area. They put their number one priority area was developing more industry partnerships. That was their number one area that they wanted to focus on this year. And their plan is hoping to see that when I look down below at some of their other priority areas. Their number two area was PD of they felt that some of the conferences they were going to were not geared towards business. They were geared towards CTE, and we should be sending them to a specific entrepreneurship conference or something that would help them in their field become more current. If I want to look down here at the bottom, I'm going to look, and they did this for all of them. If I look at their plan, their action plan for business, I'm going to just see, hope maybe some of those are in there, that by July, they wanted to dedicate resources for CTE. We had our business people attend open source maker lab in Escondido. We did an entire internship for 5 days. They actually worked in the maker lab and all kinds of things where they were learning how to use equipment, doing projects. And this is what the resources they needed. It allowed me to find ways to support that. They wanted their advisory committee needed some work on. They've had a lot of people leave, and it was something that was kind of falling apart. And last year was kind of a mess. So the key was we need to get our advisory committee back on board, because in the past, our advisory committee has led to internships, et cetera. So they put in specific tasks from which our team can actually look at and try to support those. These documents have been shared with you mostly because I think they work. I think these are good tools that allow us to, as administrators or others, to see and support teachers and get things into their classroom.
Paula, and we have a couple
Yes.
of questions, more
You
questions. Ready to take those? Okay. One is question for this chart, and I think it's the previous chart where you had all of the teachers' links. And Jacob, let me know if that's not the right chart. But the question is, do you as admin follow up and support teachers? I create things like this in my district, but find the follow up with admin doesn't happen.
Well, that's a consistent battle. I mean, I'm a grade level principal, and I also oversee CTE and a few other hats that I wear. I believe in CTE education strongly. I believe that the resources should not be spent on my salary. They should be spent on getting money into the classrooms and supporting. And that's a philosophy that is supported by the executive director of the school at Helix, as well as our governing board. We try to get as many resources. I mean, we have each of our pathway leads has a school assigned credit card with their name on it, and they have to get approval from me, but I don't have to do the ordering for them, right? They just have to say, I want to get this. Is this meet our requirements? Yada yada. I say yes, and then they order it, and and then I see the receipt on their on their credit card bill, and it takes away 2 extra steps of 2 different people touching documents. So we try to work more efficiently and smarter, and we set up some rules. If you have a credit card, make sure you understand all these rules. You don't want to lose your job, right? I mean, there's a lot. And what I have found is that people are professional and they take care of business. When they have a budget and they can take care of their budget, they will maintain it and manage it. I think having dialogues about resources is important. And I'm not sure how big districts do it or how we make sure we get, but we're all getting a significant amount of funding for kids in the classroom. So I think where there's a will, there's a way. I know recently I contacted an industry partner in biotech and they were very generous to give us some discontinued pipettes and stuff that they have said they're going to be able to help us with some of our needs. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe they might break in a couple of months, but I will send a really nice thank you letter and everything else. And it's just trying to fill those needs. I feel as part of my job and duty as an administrator, I feel my job is to support teachers, support students, support families. It's not to necessarily be a roadblock in their way.
Great, thank you.
Hope that
Another
answers your question.
Yeah, and please follow-up question if any questions, post in the chat. And then another is, how has this system been impacted by COVID restrictions?
Well, we're all impacted by COVID. Great question. I believe that, for example, we're not going to conferences this year. So a lot of people have asked for some PD, and we don't see that that's a viable course. What the nice part about that, we have PD funds that were budgeted that are now available to be used for students. We are working collaboratively. We actually have some of the best clubs virtually right now. We just can't believe it because students don't have as many other conflicts with things that they're able to make them, and they're just so anxious to be working with other people. So COVID has impacted us. We've always had pretty incredible teachers as a school. When COVID happened, administratively, we were in high gear. I was in Boston visiting my daughter during spring break. Our spring break happened while everyone else had to shut down. We actually had just started our spring break, so we were already on a 2-week break, so we had the benefit of that. But we worked all summer. We provide through the county and through Grossmont College 9 days of professional development for teachers to learn. Because what I realized is I'm not an online teacher. If I'm a teacher, I'm a teacher working in an online environment. So my personality, everything I think I do well is gone, because right now I am staring at a little green dot on the top of my computer, and I have this little manatee here that tells me to look at the manatee versus looking at my screen. So there are weird things that we do now, but it is that whole idea that I'm having to learn to deal with those things. So it's trying to find ways when a teacher says, I really want to purchase this from code.org or something like that, then I look at it as, let's get it for them. We have lots of expenses we did not incur this year that I can then help that teacher in this environment, right? So I think that's part of the key. Great question.
Great. Another one we have is, do you see a way for your evaluation process to work if there's only one teacher teaching each pathway? Our district only has one high school with 6 pathways, but only one teacher in each pathway.
Sure, absolutely. Then, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Margie.
No, that's okay. Appreciate that, Kelly. I see value in your process, but not sure how it would work with only one teacher per pathway.
Correct. You would be skipping a whole lot of steps. You'd be putting what do you believe your current, you still could figure out what is the current goal, and then I can self-identify what is that current reality. The key is inviting the administrators with you to share with them your process that you are utilizing. I mean, having transparency about resources and funds and all of those are good, but if I, as an individual teacher, I taught GIS for a long time, every single year I would do this. I'd be like, okay, these are the things I'm supposed to be doing. I could see my standard. These are the things we do well. And I would think about, how I didn't like how that went. How do I go about doing it better? Sometimes some of those things I wanted to fix weren't even priorities. They were just things I liked. They weren't even in my standards. So I think having that dialogue allows me to get more grounded. One of the challenges we have as CTE teachers is the industry changes, and we might not be changing with the industry. So I think that's super, super important we do.
I know you want to get to the social media marketing tips. Do you have time for one more question?
Yeah. That's
okay. Good. Do you align the CTE courses to some of the common core standards?
Oh, well, all CTE, yes, that's a good. If you look at the CTE standards in the skill development, they are aligned to Common Core standards, right? They are those same skills we're teaching. There are some challenges with something like, for example, biotechnology and biology, right? Some of those life standard skills. That we have really incredible professionals who understand all of those uh, uh, NGSS science standards, and they fully understand their pathway. There is more alike than there is different. And I think as a team, when we start addressing those, I hear science teachers, just regular chemistry teachers, oh, I'm never going to get through all the NGSS stuff, right? I'm never going to get there. Okay, well, what are we going to do well, right? And then as we do things well, those are strengths. And then where might be an area that we might work on. This process is no different than what we do with our what we would do with a history teacher or a math teacher or an English teacher. I would ask those same teachers, what are those goals? Those big arching goals, rank them. How well do you do those goals? Rank them for your content standards as well as your skill standards that you might have. Tons of alignment through this.
Great, thank you.
Some social media. Monica, are you here with us? Is she here? Not sure if she's here with us. That's all right. I'll go over social media marketing. Donica, we've been fortunate enough to take some of our funds and hire an academic advisor to work with CTE. And as such, be dedicated as a classified support for all of our teachers. And also looking at some strategies. One of the things Donica has taken off on is social media. Social media is something that I don't do well, but identifying the fact that I don't do it well, but our students do it really well is key. Even their parents do it really well. Post regularly, post consistently, post with purpose, and be social. That's it. We have a Helix Edge link. We have Twitter. We have different things. It's doing these things. In fact, you can even purchase for $100 a year a service that I can make one post and I can plan out my posts for the next month. I didn't realize this. My daughter does marketing for some different restaurants, and well, she used to do them for bars back, and she had all of these accounts and stuff, and she would set up all these posts all day on a Monday, and they all had times to go out with pictures and little blurbs, and then she would just enjoy the rest of her week and do all of this work for some for different businesses in order to get their attention. And then her job was to just like things and do all kinds of things in social media. We are in a generation of there. Using that to our advantage is key. One-on-one discussions, joint topics and discussions, and using some of those are key. Why should we do that? That's just another thing. Gain momentum in the algorithm, right? Followers see your post and your stories. We have industries following our posts and our stories. We have other schools following our posts and our stories. And people, when they are engaging with that, it's building our CTE network in our community. It's supporting the work that we're all doing. Sometimes Donica will create a poll or ask a question or post a quiz just to get some engagement. And when people are liking things, we know what they are liking, and we can find different ways to continue to do those things in order to gain a better audience for our students. If I'm consistently posting, we're going to have faster results. We know that. That's just a fact. Twitter, you can see it everywhere. Some plans for posting. I think the key is not overdoing it. How many posts do you want to post in a month? Right? If you want to be in the algorithm, it's once per day. We for sure in our CTE program, Donica tries to post about different pathways every day. She might post about bioengineering one day and make a little post. And her post doesn't have to be from a teacher. It could be the teacher making that post. Her post could be something happening in the biotech world, right? It's all of those things. It's just information, because students who are in biotechnology are going to read that and follow it and see that someone's paying attention to them. Plan dates for specific posts, manufacturing days, holidays, events for your program. We will see lots. I saw something that came out, for Labor Day. She has a different Labor Day post from Edge, or finals this week from Edge. Everyone, we're in finals tomorrow and Friday, so it's make sure you do these things for finals. And there has nothing to do with the pathways. It just has to do with some student skills that they should be doing. Busting through. Try to find some photo topics. We send an email out to teachers saying, hey, send us some photos, tell us what you're doing. Talk about your program. without selling it. Those are all important things that we do. We have Helix Edge on Facebook. Facebook is really for the parents and grandparents of our program. Instagram and Twitter are for our students and or industry people. We connect both accounts. So when you make one post, it goes to both places. She doesn't have to do it twice. Excuse me, using, Donica uses Facebook Creator Studio. Donica is incredible at using Canva. So she designs social media posts and marketing items. So for example, she goes to Canva and she can design pretty much anything in Canva to make it all look good, right? To make it look pretty. Here's some examples. I asked Donica to take our pathways and make a visually nice looking document that showed all of our pathways. And this is a document she created that talked about our different pathways. She has ACE Club meetings, different things that are put out there. She also uses, it's not on here, but S'mores, and we have a monthly newsletter with everything going on that's sent out to all our entire community, our governing board, all the students, all the staff, to say, hey, this is what's going on at Helix in our pathway programs. I'm kind of busting toward the end here, but I wanted to make sure if there were any questions about it. But these things, if I were doing these things, I would need a little bit more help. Last year, I didn't have Donica to do this work. We paid someone. I thought it was important to have it, take some money out of our budget and pay someone to do this. Our teachers don't have time to do it. I'm going to pay someone to make posts, to do the newsletter, and to do it really well throughout the year. And that's good use of our money because it makes all of those teachers look good, makes their students look good, it makes their industry partners look good. And it's communicating to our community about the kinds of things we're doing.
We're down to about a minute. How are you doing on more to get through?
I believe I'm good on the presentation part.
There's been some great comments in the chat. This is great, you all doing these about the use of social media, and teachers get Canva for free if they submit for an educator account. That's great.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
There's a question, my students don't want me on Facebook because I give away recipes. What would you do?
Well, we don't actually follow any students. Our school policy doesn't allow us to follow students. We don't follow students back. We post and we don't refollow. We follow other Helix programs back. We follow industries. We follow things related to us, but we do not follow students. That's in our policy. So we're not here to try to get student friends through social media. We're here to market our program, communicate to our community in a visual way for them to know what's going on. So knowing the purpose of the social media is key. And I think everyone, by the way, if doing something like that, you would want to follow your board policy. We have a board policy on that, so it makes it a little bit easier for us.
Great, thank you. We've had quite a few questions and requests for the presentation. Yes, we will post the presentation. Materials will be made available to all of our attendees on our conference website page. Just give us a few days, but we will post everything, will be accessible. We are really out of time. I see one question. How did you first start CTE? Did you have a teacher on site that could teach a particular pathway, or did you select a pathway and hire accordingly? Well, that's a big question.
Well, I don't mind answering. We had a business pathway that we started in sports med. We continued with those, and then we eliminated some pathways. We eliminated the film pathway. We eliminated child development pathway, not because those continued as classes on our campus, but they were not high. We decided as a school, we wanted high skill, high wage, and high need in our community. And those pathways were not, our community did not need those jobs. We don't have a bunch of film jobs in La Mesa. Yeah. So we added on pathways that we knew was high skill, high wage, high need in our community. And those were really difficult decisions because people were used to taking field trips and getting the slush fund of money and stuff. And it became that's really just an elective course. It's not, there are no job needs to be filled there. And we had to make some real difficult decisions. about what kind of pathways we want. And we really want we want our kids to be able to, live elsewhere. I mean, live
Great.
here and have jobs.
Yeah, looking at the labor market for sure.
For sure.
We are out of time, so I really appreciate everyone's comments and questions. Everyone was very engaged, and Paula Ann, thank you so much. Great presentation. And you all will be receiving an evaluation. We really want your feedback because this is our first time doing this, and it's all about lessons learned and continuous improvement. So again, you have other sessions presumably that you'll be attending. So we want to give you enough time to make those transitions and appreciate you joining us for this workshop. So thank you everyone and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Margie. Big shout out to Pam out there. Good to see you. Glad you could make
Bye,
it.
everyone.
There you are. It's nice to